Chapter 48, Chapter 7, Part 4. King Shroud's Fortress. 12 o'clock midnight. Gwynplaine sat in a corner somewhere above the great hall, obscured among the shadows and scowling to himself. Leaving the group probably hadn't been the safest idea, but there was no way he was going back to them. Mario had carted him along for long enough, and he was through with it. He couldn't remember the last time he had been so upset. His face was screwed up in misery as he sat by himself, hardly even caring if he was caught. Confronting Mario like that had opened up all of his old wounds, and he remembered all the more clearly now why he hated the Guardians so much. What they had done to him, how they were supposed to be protectors but instead they had taken everything away from him. And Mario was no better. He was nothing but a pretentious blowhard, flaunting his hero status every chance he got and not caring about anything else. The only time he ever even gave Gwynplaine a thought was when he was yelling at him for being a hassle. He was just another thing that made Mario's life oh so difficult. There were no heroes in this world. The ones who were supposed to help you just ended up hurting you. It was always the same. So he had just given up. He didn't even care if he never made it out of this fortress. He had nothing to go back to in Chronoside. Nothing and nobody. He never had. Suddenly a faint noise reached his ears, and he shot up in surprise. Somewhere nearby, behind the locked door, he heard a group of familiar voices. It was Mario and the others, and they were screaming. They sounded terrified. There was somebody else in the room too, and he was letting out a loud, wicked laugh. Gwynplaine realized they must be fighting for the last Sun Soul. Whoever they were facing must be a real monster. But what did he care? So what if they lost? He had never cared what happened to them, had he? Mario? Should he really just forget about him? Should he just leave him here to get a game over, not caring what happened? After everything he did to me. For a moment he sat there, feeling confused, wondering what he should do. But finally, his doubt left him and his face grew firm. He made his decision.
Bowser!
Mario gasped, holding onto his hammer for dear life as he stared up at the turtly behemoth towering over them.
What happened to you? That's Bowser.
Hannah whimpered, looking terrified along with the others.
Well, kind of. He doesn't usually look like this. Gra ha ha. You like it, Mario?
Bowser jeered, taking another crashing step toward them.
Yeah, this spiffy little makeover makes me 10 times more powerful, more than enough to mop the floor with you. I have good old King Shroud to thank for that. King Shroud?
Mario suddenly frowned.
Bowser, what are you doing working for him? Don't you know he's holding Peach captive? Do you know what he's going to do to her if we don't get to her in time? Oh, that's so typical Mario. Trying to lie to me to get me to lower my guard.
Bowser scoffed.
I'm not falling for any of your little tricks. King Shroud already promised me I'll get to have Peach to myself once I'm done pummeling you. Well, there I'm afraid you were misinformed,
Maisie said darkly.
We know what he's after, and he has no intention of doing such a thing.
Bowser just gave her an amused look.
And look at that, Mario. You have another group of cute little friends following you around. Well, we'll see how much they like you when you're a smear on the wall.
He suddenly stood back and started flexing his dark blue muscles.
And by the way, it's not Bowser anymore. This awesome bot deserves a new name. You can call me Blackout Bowser.
Mario glared at him.
You're joking, right? I've never been more serious.
Bowser roared in his face, causing him to wince and cover his ears.
This is it, Mario. Our final confrontation. You've been a thorn in my side for long enough. Your superstar saga ends here.
And before Mario could even react, he had opened his mouth and let loose a torrent of black flames. Mario's whole party screamed and scrambled out of the way, narrowly avoiding being burned alive.
Come on, Mario. What are you, chicken?
Bowser taunted him, unleashing another blast of fire as he stomped after them.
Ha, and I thought you were some kind of hero. Looks like I've been lied to.
Mario's mind was racing desperately. He was an expert on fighting Bowser, but this was completely different. He somehow had a feeling anything he tried would be completely ineffective. Not least of all because he couldn't even get close. Blackout Bowser's shadowy fire was keeping the entire group at bay, frantically running for their lives.
Mario, what do we do?
Stubba cried as they'd all been backed into a corner.
We can't fight him. He's so strong. You're telling me?
Mario groaned, staring up at Bowser's wicked grin as he flexed his claws and advanced on them. Mario couldn't believe they were about to go out like this. They needed a miracle. They needed. The door slammed open. Everyone, even Bowser, immediately stopped what they were doing and turned in surprise to face the person who had just burst into the room.
Gumblane!
Mario gasped. Everyone stared in astonishment, not making a sound as Gumblane stood where he was, frowning in intent. Mario's heart suddenly started pounding like crazy. Had Gumblane changed his mind? Had he finally come back to help the group, now when they needed help the most? For a tension-filled moment, Gumblane didn't move. Nobody took their eyes off him as his narrowed gaze traveled over every person in the room. And then finally came to rest on Mario. Mario gazed back at him. And then his eyes bulged and he gasped, but he was too late to save himself as Gumblane threw himself at him, knocking him to the ground.
Gumblane! What are you doing?
Hannah cried incredulously. Mario shouted in pain as he struck the hard ground, but Gumblane wasn't finished. He kicked the plumber in the side, sending him rolling across the floor and frantically grabbing at himself, gasping and weakly trying to get to his feet.
I'm gonna make you pay, fat man!
Gumblane bellowed at him.
For everything you put me through. You're gonna find out what it's like. Dude! What is your malfunction? Stop wailing on Mario, dude!
Ferdinand said angrily. He and the other partners tried to grab Gumblane, but the Goomba just shoved them all off and continued stomping after Mario. The plumber had finally managed to struggle to his feet, clutching his aching side, but he froze when he saw the look on Gumblane's face. It was so angry, so full of pent-up hate and rage at him, at the whole world, that Mario was completely terrified of what he saw. Too terrified to get away. He vaguely realized that Gumblane was using Intimidate on him. It was only then that Blackout Bowser suddenly spoke up.
Hey! What the heck is going on here?
He demanded, stomping his foot and trying to regain the group's attention.
Some lousy Goomba thinks he can just storm in here and steal my fight? This is between you and me, Mario.
But Mario still couldn't tear his gaze away from Gumblane.
Gumblane? Please.
He said quietly, though he knew it was useless.
Don't do this. You can't do this. Yeah? Try and stop me.
Gumblane snarled, ramming him in the stomach and sending him staggering backwards, the wind knocked out of him. His other partners were horrified. They looked frantically back and forth between Blackout Bowser and Gumblane, desperate and confused, unsure of what to do. Thankfully, that decision was made for them once Bowser let out an annoyed growl and started stomping over to Mario, intent on forcibly removing any distractions.
Hey! Where do you think you're going, partner?
Snatchel snapped as he and the others raced in front of the oversized Koopa.
You want to fight, then you got one right here. Yeah. If you want Mario, then you gotta get through us first.
Said Hannah, pulling out her hammer with a look that said she meant business. That finally got Mario's attention.
What? No. Guys.
He turned away from Gumblane.
You can't. He's too strong. You have to.
He broke off as Dolia suddenly gave him a sad, nervous smile.
Don't worry about us, Mario. We'll be fine.
She promised, though everyone in the room knew it was a lie.
You're a really good teacher, after all. Yeah. We'll take care of Bowser.
Said Hannah, looking determined but grim.
And you? You take care of Gumblane.
Mario couldn't believe what he was seeing. His partners were sacrificing themselves just to buy him time. Time he wouldn't even need if he hadn't screwed things up with Gumblane in the first place. Bowser let out an angry huff.
Fine, then. Getting rid of you shrimps should be no problem at all.
He growled. Without warning, he swiped a massive clawed hand at the partners, scattering them right off the bat. Mario didn't get to see any more, as he was caught off guard by a painful blow to the head. He spun around and saw Gwynplaine advancing on him, his eyes blazing, looking ready to do something he couldn't take back. For a split second, Mario flashed back to their very first battle back in Saluna Town. He could end this the way he had ended it then. He didn't have time for this, he had to go help the others. His fingers twitched over his hammer. No. He stood back, horrified at what he had almost done. I can't fight him. Never. If I do, then I lose him forever. He put his hammer away. Gwynplaine obviously didn't care. He smacked Mario in the face again, screaming angrily as the plumber was sent reeling backwards, wincing in pain. Without waiting for Mario to recover, he rushed up and head-bonked him, sending him collapsing to the floor. But Mario just pulled himself back to his feet.
Gwynplaine. Please.
He said quietly. He wasn't even angry, he realized, just sad.
Please. You're our friend. You don't have to do this. Shut up.
Gwynplaine shouted at him.
Stop acting like you know me. You don't know anything about me.
He rushed forward and started beating Mario up all over again. Mario didn't even try to get out of the way. He just stood there, watching the whole thing sadly, taking it like a man. The fight against Blackout Bowser was a hopeless one. Hannah was throwing hammer after hammer until her arm was sore, but they all glanced harmlessly off his shell. Dolia's head missile was useless, and she could barely throw up plasma shields fast enough to protect herself and the others from Bowser's crushing claws. Ferdinand couldn't even get in close enough for a beat jab before the Koopa King gave him a painful chomp and sent him plummeting out of the air.
We need Mario.
Dolia cried out, and they all knew it was true. Mario knew how to fight Bowser, and he was the one who organized them all during the tough battles. If he had been there to coordinate them, they may have had a chance. But without their leader, there was nothing they could do.
Gra ha ha. Come on, is that all you got?
Bowser laughed, effortlessly shattering Dolia's plasma shield with another swipe of his hand.
I thought friends of Mario's would give me a bigger challenge.
Maisie suddenly grew a determined frown. She raced up behind him and started singing the most potent lullaby she knew, intent on putting him to sleep. Bowser heard the melody and suddenly felt himself growing drowsy. Only to snap out of it almost instantly and round on Maisie with an annoyed snarl.
And what's this? A pretty little flower?
He sneered, relishing the frightened look on her face.
You of all people should know better than to play with fire.
And in a split second, he opened his mouth and let loose the hottest and most devastating fire blast of the entire battle.
Maisie!
Cried several partners, but it all happened so fast, she couldn't react in time. All she had time to do was cry out and throw her arm over her face, squeezing her eyes shut and bracing herself for the end. Which never came, because Snatchel shoved her out of the way. Everyone screamed, but her scream was the loudest and most desperate of all as the flames roared right by her face and his charred body toppled over onto the ground. Gwynplaine was pummeling Mario over and over, knocking him around at every angle and driving him backwards. Mario tried to fight back his rising panic. How much longer would Gwynplaine go? He had proven his point already, he was the clear winner, but he was still as angry as ever. He wasn't letting up, he wasn't stopping. But still Mario refused to pull out his hammer.
Why don't you fight me, fat man?
Gwynplaine snarled as he slugged Mario in the stomach.
Fighting's what you're good at, ain't it? I could never hurt you, Gwynplaine. You're my friend. No, I'm not. Stop saying that.
The fact that Mario wasn't fighting back was just driving Gwynplaine over the edge. He was screaming in frustration as he dealt blow after blow. Mario was aching all over, his vision was swimming, and he could barely stand on his feet anymore. But every time Gwynplaine knocked him to the ground, he just got back up. He had to see this through. He had to fix this.
Gwynplaine. Listen to me.
He said urgently.
I know how you must feel right now. I know how angry you must be. You don't know anything.
Gwynplaine snapped back.
You have no idea what I've been through. You're right. I can't imagine what you've been through. But I do know what it's like to lose somebody you love,
said Mario, as a little rainbow-colored butterfly flitted through his mind.
And I'm not losing you too. I'm not.
Mario's partners were dropping like flies. Stubba tried to incapacitate Blackout Bowser by performing his shock wave, curling up as he jumped high into the air and then slamming into the ground as hard as he could. The resulting tremor rattled Bowser's brain around in his skull and left him confused, as well as flipping him over on his back since he had a shell. But even in that state he was so furious that he just started spewing fire in every direction, not caring what he hit. Stubba couldn't get out of the way in time.
Gumblane, you know you don't want to do this,
Mario wheezed, clutching at his bruised stomach.
Deep down, you know this is wrong. Why do you think you know that?
Gumblane demanded, kicking him right in the face. Mario staggered backwards.
Because you stayed, didn't you?
Gumblane paused.
Gumblane, I know how angry you must be at the Guardians. You think it's their fault that your parents aren't around. You have every right to be angry.
He lowered his gaze.
You have a right to be angry at me too. Everything you said back there. You were right. You were right and I was wrong. And I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, now you're sorry.
Gumblane sneered, smacking him across the face again.
It's kinda late for that, after everything you made me go through. So why did you stay?
Mario repeated. Once again, Gumblane suddenly fell still, looking confused.
I didn't make you go through anything. You could have left anytime you wanted, you know. There was nothing I could have done to stop you.
Mario went on.
But you stayed, Gumblane. Even though it hurt you so badly, even though it was just a reminder of what happened, you stayed. Why?
Gumblane just stared at him, suddenly starting to shake.
Because you knew the Guardians had to come back,
Mario answered for him.
Because you saw what King Shroud did, and you knew. No matter what it meant for you personally, the world needed the Guardians. So you put your prejudice aside, and you stayed. Because you were strong enough.
He heard Hannah let out a strangled cry as she collapsed to the ground. She was the last one. His partners had all fallen still behind him.
That's why I know you can't do this. That's why I know you'll do the right thing.
He staggered and almost fell.
And if I have to end my own game to prove it to you, then so be it.
Gumblane didn't move. He didn't attack Mario again. He just stood there staring at him, trembling all over, his eyes wide. He didn't look angry anymore, he just looked so hurt and lonely and confused.
Mario!
Came a roar, and Mario spun around to see Blackout Bowser advancing on him.
I've had enough of this. I took care of your puny little friends, now stand and face me.
Mario balked at the sight of him. His partners hadn't even landed a scratch on Bowser, while he himself could barely even stand. Gumblane had injured him badly. He didn't stand a chance in this battle, not by himself.
Fine,
he finally said, pulling out his hammer and ignoring how much of an effort it was to do so.
You want me, Bowser, you got me.
Gumblane stood back and stared at him.
What are you? Gumblane, you have to get out of here.
Mario shouted over his shoulder.
I'll hold him off. You just get out of here and save yourself. Hurry.
But Gumblane still didn't move. He could only watch in horror as Mario tried vainly to fight back against Bowser's teeth and claws and fire, swinging his hammer but never landing a hit, barely even able to defend himself. But Mario was desperate by now, not even trying to win, just trying to protect his friend, like he should have been doing all along. It was over within moments. Mario fell to the floor, gasping in pain, his hammer flying out of his hand as Blackout Bowser towered over him, his eyes glinting as a toothy grin spread across his face.
It's been nice knowing you, Mario.
He laughed before he opened his mouth and prepared a final fire blast. Mario could only wince and brace himself, praying that Gumblane had made it out safely, praying that he had saved him, that he had at least been able to fix things before the end. Bowser was suddenly struck in the head. He roared in shock and staggered backwards, his fire blast going off in the wrong direction as the person who had struck him suddenly landed on the ground, standing protectively between him and Mario. Mario lifted his head up and stared.
Gumblane? You're a freak.
Gumblane spat at him, tears springing to his eyes.
Dumb, stupid freak. You know that.
Mario gawked at him for a moment before he remembered where he was and hastily climbed to his feet, grabbing his hammer off the ground. In the same amount of time, Bowser managed to clear his head.
Ugh, What do you think you're doing, pizza topping? He demanded. Are you on Mario's side or not? We're ending this, Bowser,
Mario snapped, coming up to him with his hammer in his hands.
We need that Sun Soul, and you're not keeping it from us.
Gumblane said nothing, but the glare he gave Bowser said that he agreed. Bowser blinked slowly before growling.
All right, fine. Be that way. Let's boogie.
He let loose another blast of black fire at the two of them, but they both dodged it, and then Gumblane pulled out his phone.
That's Blackout Bowser. King Shroud juiced him up and made him way stronger than normal, so his fire breath will probably own you if you get hit. He can use his teeth and claws to fight too, and his shell's tougher and can handle pretty much anything, but he's still the same dumb Koopa he's always been. We can trick him.
Bowser frowned.
Hey. Do you mind? I'm standing right here.
He started chasing after Mario, who was running on pure force of will by now. As he swung his clawed hand at Mario, the plumber threw up his hammer and blocked it, trying to force Bowser backwards. While they were distracted, Gumblane ran up from behind and delivered a multi-bonk to Bowser's head, causing the Koopa King to roar in frustration.
How dare you disrespect the great King Bowser?
He shouted, swinging his claws repeatedly at Gumblane, but the Goomba ducked and dodged his every blow before throwing in another head bonk. Bowser punished him by body-checking him and sending him flying into a wall, but Mario immediately came to his rescue. He steeled himself and jumped high into the air, throwing a power smash down right on Bowser's head.
Grah! Stop it! Enough already!
Bowser roared, attempting to barbecue them with another fire blast, but Mario pulled Gumblane out of the way just in time. By now Bowser was so frustrated that he just kept firing blast after blast at them, but the two of them ran around the periphery of the room too quickly for him to catch.
He's gotta run out of firepower sometime,
Mario muttered as they skidded to a stop.
What was that about tricking him? I bet he doesn't like getting made fun of,
Gumblane said knowingly. Mario grinned as an idea formed in his mind.
Hey, whack out Bowser!
He shouted, stepping forward.
So you really think you're hot stuff, hey? You call those horns? I've seen bigger horns at a high school band concert.
Bowser's eyes bulged.
Why nobody trash talks the horns.
He bellowed, shooting more black flames from his mouth. But it was no use, Mario was too fast.
Yahoo!
The plumber cheered as he ran back and forth, dodging the flames and taunting Bowser all the while. The Koopa King was getting so furious, he didn't even notice Gumblane until he had slammed into him with a mighty head bonk and driven him right into the floor.
Alright, that does it. Prepare for mushroom flambe.
He roared, opening his mouth and preparing to burn Gumblane alive. But when he tried, only a weak puff of smoke came out. He blinked.
What? No.
He desperately tried again, but Mario's ploy had worked, he was all out of fire.
No, no, no. Curse you, Mario. You'll pay for this. Maybe someday. But not today,
Mario said decisively.
Let's finish this.
Without his firepower, Bowser had to resort to using his teeth and claws to fight, and while they were strong, it was nothing Mario and Gumblane couldn't handle. While Bowser was distracted trying to hit one, and not always succeeding, the other would throw in a powerful head bonk or power smash to throw him off balance. The two of them ganged up on him, fighting in perfect synchronicity as they slowly but surely drove him backwards. Finally, Bowser had grown too tired to stand. He feebly tried taking a bite out of Mario, but the plumber easily deflected him with a swing from his hammer. Bowser let out a despairing moan as he sank to his knees, completely out of energy.
Why? Why? Why?
He cried.
I spent the whole time preparing for this. Passing all these tests. Proving I was worthy. Getting these awesome powers.
He threw up his head.
Why can't I beat you no matter what I do? I'll tell you why,
Mario said tonelessly.
I'm Super Mario.
With one more power smash to the head, Bowser let out a defeated groan and toppled over, crashing to the ground. Mario and Gumblane stood back and watched, and after a brief moment he was suddenly consumed by a cloud of black smoke, spiraling up to the ceiling the same way the first one had. When the smoke finally cleared away, Blackout Bowser was gone. Mario stood where he was for a moment, letting it all sink in. His adrenaline rush was wearing off, and he let out a groan as he collapsed to the ground, his head spinning and his body aching, completely exhausted. Naturally, his partners picked that very moment to get back up.
Ah! What happened?
Hannah moaned, slowly pulling herself up into a sitting position.
Ow! Okay, that guy was really tough. Hey, where is he?
Asked Stubba, sitting up and looking around in confusion.
Where's Bowser? He's gone. I guess that means we beat him,
said Ferdinand, looking pretty pleased.
Ha! Gnarly, man.
Delia was the first to notice Mario.
Oh, Mario.
She cried, running over to him.
Are you okay? You look awful. What happened to you? Did you beat Bowser, Mario?
Asked Stubba as he and the others followed Delia over to him, helping him back up.
Ugh. Yeah, I guess I did,
he chuckled, swaying on his feet as his partners steadied him.
Oof. Don't worry about me, guys. I'm fine. I'm just glad you're all okay.
But as he quickly found out, they weren't all okay.
Snatchel!
Came a panicked voice. Everyone turned and saw the sheriff lying deathly still on the ground, covered in burns, Maisie kneeling over him with a pleading look on her face.
No, no, no. Snatchel, you can't do this to me. Please. Please, you have to open your eyes. You have to wake up.
She started shaking him, and when he didn't respond, Mario and the others' eyes widened in horror and they raced over to him. Maisie's pleas finally grew incoherent as she started crying, shaking her head, looking ready to come undone. And then Snatchel opened his eyes. Maisie gasped and fell silent as he slowly sat up and looked at her with a wide-eyed expression. And then she frowned angrily and gave him a hard slap in the face.
Don't ever do that again, you big oaf. Aren't you even the least bit considerate?
Everyone looked at her in confusion, Snatchel most of all.
What?
He said, frowning defensively.
Come on, darlin', that ain't called for.
He was cut off as Maisie suddenly threw her arms around him and gave him a big long kiss. When she finally broke off in order to lean against him with a relieved smile, he was looking dazed and slightly cross-eyed. He glanced over at Mario and the others, who all gave him grins of approval. Ferdinand flashed him a thumbs up, somehow, Stubba giggled happily and Hannah threw up her arms and shouted finally.
Hey! Gwynplaine!
Mario's heart skipped a beat. Delia was the one who had spoken, and he and the others quickly fell quiet and turned to find her looking at the Goomba, who was standing several feet away from the rest of them.
Gwynplaine? Did you help Mario beat Bowser, too? Did you save us?
Everyone was looking at him expectantly, but he didn't answer. For once in his life, he looked completely unsure of himself.
Yes. Yes, he did help me.
Mario quickly spoke up, walking over to Gwynplaine's side.
I couldn't have won without him. Thank you, Gwynplaine.
But still the Goomba said nothing. He had no idea what he could say. He just gazed at Mario with a completely lost expression. It was so strange to see him not looking angry.
Hey, Gwynplaine dude. I hope you're not still mad at us for being guardians and stuff,
Ferdinand said quietly.
You know you're our bro, dude. We didn't want any of that stuff to happen to you. Yeah. You're our friend.
Stubba said fervently.
And we're really sorry about your mom and dad. Please don't be mad.
Gwynplaine glanced up at them.
No. I'm not mad,
he finally decided, then gave Mario a pained look.
But... Fat man. I mean, Mario. Gwynplaine, it's all right. I'm not angry at you for any of those things.
Mario promised him, getting down on one knee so he could look his partner in the eye.
But, Gwynplaine. You should have said something. All this time. You should have told us.
Gwynplaine gave a light scoff.
Like you woulda cared,
he muttered, though there was no heart in his words.
Honey, of course we would have cared. Whatever made you think we wouldn't?
Asked Maisie.
I know it might feel like you don't have anybody. But that's not true,
said Delia.
Because your family is everybody who loves you. And we... Well... We could be a family for you. If you wanted us to.
Gwynplaine looked at all of them with wide eyes, seeing the friendly and encouraging looks they were giving him. He couldn't believe it. After all this time, after everything he had done and said, they had no reason to want him around, but they still did. They did. Finally, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He bowed his head and squeezed his eyes shut as tears ran down his face.
Geez. I'm gonna lose all my street cred if I keep crying like this. Gwynplaine, you're one of us. You lost your street cred a long time ago.
Hannah said affectionately. Mario smiled, but the smile quickly fell from his face and everything else was pushed from his mind when he noticed the bright glow out of the corner of his eye. Everyone turned and stared. A brilliant, pure white sun soul was floating in the air, and even then it was slowly drifting over to them. Its silver waves were shining, and its bright glow lit up the room around them, drowning out the light of the black flames. Mario could feel its pure power, unlike almost anything he had ever felt before, and he smiled in astonishment at the feeling of warmth and happiness it gave off. It was shining so brightly. So much brighter than he had expected. Almost as though it were reacting to. And then suddenly, everything was clear. Every one of them, even King Shroud himself, had been wrong. The Master of Day wasn't Peach at all. Everyone stared as the Sun Soul came to a stop. But no one stared more than Gwynplaine.
But,
he said softly, disbelievingly.
But I.
Suddenly he started trembling and the tears started falling all over again.
But it was supposed to be her. Why me? Why me?
Mario was completely dumbfounded. For the longest time he couldn't find his voice. All he could do was stare.
I understand now,
he finally said.
Gwynplaine. You remember what I said to you, about how you were helping us bring back the Guardians? No matter what it meant to you personally?
He asked.
I think that's why. If the Master of Day were Peach, it wouldn't have meant as much. Yeah. I guess the Master of Day had to be somebody who would always defend the Guardians, no matter what happened, Hannah said softly, still gazing at the Sun Soul in complete awe. And that's exactly what you did, Gwynplaine. You always helped us, even though you didn't want to. Even though it was hard.
She glanced down at her shoes.
That's what I think. Well, what do you know?
Snatchel chuckled, removing his hat reverently.
I don't reckon I could have picked a better one myself.
His other partners were all smiling, but Mario was looking intently at Gwynplaine.
So, Gwynplaine. What do you say?
He said encouragingly.
You think you're up to it? You ready to lead the Guardians of Day and save the world?
Hannah grinned and gave a salute.
We're behind you all the way, Mr. Master of Day, sir.
For a moment Gwynplaine was silent, looking unsurely at the other partners, then at the brilliant Sun Soul before him, whose very presence seemed to drain all his sadness away and fill him with a glowing light. And then finally, he looked at Mario.
You know what? I think I am ready,
he said.
Let's go teach that King Shroud freak a lesson he won't ever forget.
All the other partners cheered, and Gwynplaine smiled, and Mario thought that if only they were back in Dayside his smile would have been brilliant enough to snuff out the sun. Mario found the Day Soul. His star power is now 7. With Gwynplaine's help, he can now use the special move, Shine Down. End of chapter. King Shroud had hidden the 7th Sun Soul, the most powerful one of all, within the darkened halls of his fortress. Reaching the fortress was no easy task, but Mario rescued the Sun Soul and also found its true owner. With the Guardians of Day and the Master of Day at his side, the time has come for Mario's final confrontation. The battle to determine the fate of Chronoside is about to begin. To be continued. End of chapter.